Welcome to today's video, and in this video I want to answer one big question, which is why delegation feels so impossible, and I also want to understand what do we do about it. And instead of saying that, I'm the biggest authority in this question and you should listen to me, to what I say, I actually want to analyze information from this book, which is The E-Myth, written by Michael Gerber, and it says the world's #1 small business guru. So we're gonna analyze information from this book where he describes why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. And we're going to understand specifically what are the reasons why delegation feels so hard and what do we need to do about it. And I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to just share my screen and go and basically break down the whole thought process on this whiteboard. So we're going to start with the big question at the top, which says why delegation feels impossible. All right, so this is the biggest question, or one of the biggest questions, I should say, that we're going to be discussing today. And also, after understanding why does it feel so impossible, we'll also want to understand what to do about it. But that's going to be the second part. So let's just start with understanding what this the E-Myth is all about. So everything that we're going to be discussing is going to be based on this book, The E-Myth, that I showed you, right? This book is written by Michael Gerber, so if you'd like to read it, I think many of us and many of you probably heard of it and read it, but feel free to again, you can get back to this to understand it better after this video. So Michael Gerber explains some of the concepts of how to build a successful business, right? Especially from the ground up when you're bootstrapping your business. And there are a couple of important things in order to build a successful business. So the goal is obviously a successful or profitable, however you want to call this, business, right? And in order to build this business, right, the successful business, Michael Gerber explains that the business owner who starts the business most of the time does not have a lot of entrepreneurial skills. So people who are starting businesses are most of the time technicians. As he explains this in his book, these are people who know how to do something very, very well, and they decide to do it for themselves, right? So they decide to run their own business, start their own small team. And again, the way he explains this is every single business owner has 3 main roles. And he breaks it down this way. The first role is called a technician, right? So this is actually technician. So this is the role #1 of the business owner. The role #2 of the business owner, he calls it a manager. So I'm going to put it here, a manager. And the third role that he explains is called entrepreneur. All right, so 3 roles. So let's just put #1, #2, #3. All right, so let me, and again, as he explains that most of us, as we run our businesses, or many of us, we prefer to do the work of the technician just because we know what it is all about. And technician, he explains, is basically the person who knows how to do something, right? So it's a doer. So the person who knows how to do stuff. So if you run ads for your company or for your clients, you probably know very well how to do advertising. If you're doing social media marketing, you probably know a lot about that. If you're, building automations or you're doing construction, you probably know how to do something very, very well. And again, this is what technician is all about. Now, he also explains that managers are responsible, and as part of the role that we are playing in the business, manager is responsible for organizing the work and building order, right? So we're going to put order here, and we're also going to put the predictability. So if you think about this, manager is building different systems and order and organization in your company in order to make it predictable, to deliver predictable outcomes to the clients. So this is the part where you're understanding your processes, you're understanding how do we want the work to be done, how the team is currently doing the work, so that you can recreate results over and over again for whoever you're serving or for whoever the stakeholder is for that specific part of the business. And then the entrepreneur is the person who embraces the risks. So let me write this down as well. So this is the person who embraces the risks, who embraces the creativity, and who is the energy of the company. All right? So if you think about this, let me actually zoom it like this so you see it better. The entrepreneur is the person who drives the business forward because of, again, his or her thinking. So you're thinking about how to reach to the new customers, what are the new markets that we can go into, and all of that stuff. So that is the work of the entrepreneur. And again, it's slightly different, or I would say it's extremely different from the technician and the manager. And what Michael Gerber explains is that all of us have these three roles as part of our day-to-day job. The way we're splitting it, this makes the difference of whether the business becomes successful or not. So he says that the majority of people are splitting these three roles in their day-to-day life like this. They spend 70% of their time as a technician, 20% of their time as a manager, and only 10% of their time as entrepreneur. All right? So this is how Michael Gerber explains the reason why many small businesses fail. He says many people are just focusing much attention or a lot of attention on their technician part of the job, and they absolutely forget about the entrepreneurial part of the job. All right, so that makes sense. And again, many of us understand the concept, right? So now I want to get a little bit closer to answering the question, why does delegation feel so impossible? And I think, again, you're starting understanding where I'm getting with the technician, manager, and entrepreneur, and how Michael Gerber explains how we split our attention, right? So the next thing that I want to mention here is that in this book, he explains the three phases of maturity for every single business. And I want to explain these phases, again, to get to the main questions or main reasons why delegation feels so impossible. So the three phases of maturity for the business. All right? So the three phases that he explains go like this. The first one is infancy phase, right? So this is the phase where you just start the business, you do the work all by yourself, you do the sales, you do the marketing, you do the fulfillment, you do process the invoice, and you do everything that you can imagine of. And this phase is called infancy. Now, the second phase of the business, of any business that he explains it, is called the adolescence, right? So we're gonna write it down like this. All right. So again, as he explains this, during this phase, what you're doing, you start hiring your first team members. You start organizing your team. You start building your team because there is a lot of demand in the services that you have, and you just cannot, again, satisfy that demand with only your own time, right? You have so many hours in a day, and as soon as you have, I don't know, 5, 10, whatever the number is of the clients in your business, you might want to get outside help from other people. So this is where the adolescence phase of the business maturity kicks in. And then the final phase, obviously, is when the business is mature. Now, what I think is extremely interesting of what he mentions in the book is that many successful companies did not start from the infancy phase. What happened is they already started from the maturity phase because the business owners or entrepreneurs behind that business knew how to build the business from the very beginning, right? They had the skill set and they had the knowledge of how do they build the successful company that they desire to build. So the companies he explains like IBM and McDonald's, right? So those companies started already as mature companies because the business owners behind them, as he explains, that already understood all the steps that they need to take in order to build the business and to build a successful business. At least they had the mindset and the skill set to do this from the very beginning. But now, as we are explaining this three different stages of maturity of the business, I want to now dive into the actual answer to the question, why does delegation feel so impossible? And again, as we're going from one phase to the other, there are obviously different types of issues or problems that happen in the business. So let's break it down. And again, we're going to start with the infancy phase. So the number one reason of why delegation feels impossible, according to this book, is number one, if you think about this, during infancy phase, you spend so much time doing stuff. You spend so much time thinking about how to do things better. And you're actually in the battlefield, or I would say in the trenches, of doing things, of providing services to your customers, that you get the mindset of no one can do it better. Can do it better than me. All right? So this is the number one issue of why many of us, again, including myself, think this have troubles with delegating, because no one can do it better than me, because we're so good at what we do and being technicians. And again, as Michael Gerber explains this, we just love what we do and we know how to do it. This is why when we hire someone, we think those people are not as good as we are, and we cannot give them those tasks or those projects that we were responsible for. So that becomes the number one issue of why we cannot delegate. All right, so this most of the time relates to the infancy phase, right? When you don't have any employees, when there is just or maybe a very small team, and again, you're just giving one-off tasks to people, maybe contractors, and you really cannot grow the company unless you realize that other people can do the work maybe as good as I do, maybe not as well as I do, and maybe they're not as perfect, as I am, as many of us think, but they can do it well enough in order to grow the company. All right, so this is the number one problem. Number two issue that we're going to be discussing, again, refers most of the time to the adolescence phase, where you start hiring people. And the problem here becomes that we organize, and I'm going to write this down, we organize our business, we organize around people, but not functions. And this is one of the points that he mentions in the book, and he says, when you're hiring someone, instead of hiring a person, right, who is good, who knows how to do something, we have to hire around functions. And what I like to call this, and I usually find this when I build different systems and automations for the businesses, is that you need to understand what the process is and what are the business roles that are part of that process. Not specific people that are part of the process, but business roles or functions. Right? This way, when you're putting together a job offer or a job post to hire someone, you can clearly explain what processes or what part do they need to play in specific processes in the team, right? Do they need to do 5 tasks here and 10 tasks there, or what are they going to be responsible for? And it makes it's so much easier. And again, this is what he mentions, that it's preferable to organize around functions and not people. But the reason we're having the problem with delegation is because we're trying to organize around people, not functions. So we're basically doing this the other way around. And the third problem the third answer to the question why delegation feels so impossible is that we don't measure, so we don't improve. So what this means is that, this. So what this means is that when we're tracking when we don't track anything, we don't track any tasks, we don't track the deliverables, the things that we're giving to people, we don't really understand what's going on. We don't really understand, are we in control? Are we on track? Are we running late? Do we have capacity to do things? And again, if we don't measure, we first of all, and this is what he mentioned, we cannot improve, but we do not have that visibility into what's going on and what's happening. All right. So now as we understand the 3 main reasons of why delegation feels so impossible, again, according to the book, The E-Myth, we also going to try to find the answer to this question of what do we now do about this? And I'm going to start with the problem number 1 that says no one can do it better than me. And most of the time what this refers to, and again, what Michael Gerber mentions a lot in his book, is that there are 2 main reasons of why this is happening. If we break this down, we can break this down into 2 reasons. Number 1 is going to be clarity. So we basically don't understand what do we do. That is why we cannot delegate it, right? We sometimes try to explain to people, I do it this way, or I'm trying to do it this way, or this is what you need to do. But we don't give really clear definitions of what that is that we're doing. So whenever you're trying to delegate someone, instead of giving them clear instructions and saying, this is how the work should be done, you're just saying, this is what I do every day, just try to do the same thing. And no wonder why people sometimes, do not get to our they do not deliver to our expectations, because we did not have and set the clear goals for them and clear definition of what that is that they need to do. So that is the problem number 1. And the problem number 2 that we can break it into is the visibility. All right. So if the first problem refers to us understanding how the work is done and what is that we need to do, the second problem is now having control over things that we're delegating. So imagine that you know how something needs to be done, right? You need to follow 5 steps. This is what you need to do. All right, you give this task to someone in your team, but now you don't have visibility into where they are at throughout this process. So if they already completed step 1, if they are on step 5, maybe they have a question on step number 3. So you, instead of, again, because we don't have that visibility into what is going on and how the work is flowing, it's hard for us to feel in control and feel safe. This is why when you're trying to delegate, and most of the time happens to me, I feel lost and it doesn't go nowhere. So anywhere. So in this example, the clarity and visibility are the 2 main issues of why we feel like no one can do it better than me, and why we stop from delegating the work. Now, we are here to find the solution to this question. So not only understand the question, but also understand how do we solve this. And in his book, again, as part of the, I think it was one of the last sections of the book, where he explains the business development process. And as part of that process, there is one part where he explains different types of systems that businesses have. And he breaks it down into 3 types of systems, which is hard systems, soft systems, and information systems. In this video and in this particular example, we're going to be focusing on soft and information systems. And basically, if you think about this, hard systems are just, the computers, the servers, the hardware of your company, right? The location, like the building, the inventory, whatever that is. The soft systems are things like your frameworks of how do you do your meetings, or how do you do your strategy sessions, right? This is the frameworks that you're using inside your company. And the information systems are systems which are basically most known as softwares, right? So these are business softwares. You have your CRM, you have your ERP software, you have your project management softwares, maybe other softwares that you're using in your company. And again, this allows you to track information in the business. So these are the 3 systems that he explains, and I'm going to use those systems to solve these 3 problems that we mentioned. And the number one thing that we're going to solve is going to be the clarity problem. Because if you think about this, the reason why you don't understand what is the work that needs to be done is probably because you don't have those soft systems that Michael Gerber explains. You don't have the frameworks behind how do you do this, or what is it that you need to get done? What is step-by-step process of how this work needs to be done? So the solution to clarity problem is going to be our soft systems. And most of the time, what I like to say is soft systems are the documentation and basically the processes that you have inside your company. So I would even say it like this. It's documented processes. You can call them workflows. You can call them workflows. It really doesn't matter. There are many ways to describe this, but it's basically saying this is how we do work. This is step by step of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And again, this comes from the concept of soft systems, right? So the soft system is basically explanation of how do we do things and the framework behind how do we do day-to-day activities. All right, so that is going to be part number 1. And part number 2, which is going to be the visibility problem, and the solution for this is going to be our information system. The reason why is we mentioned, let me just write this down. So we mentioned that information systems allow us to track information inside the business, right? Whether it's a specific software, maybe it's an Excel file, whatever that is, it's still a software. So essentially, we're going to solve this with software, which can be your CRM system, right? So it's a CRM. It's an ERP system, which is maybe for slightly bigger businesses, but it stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. That, again, includes multiple parts of your business. You can organize your inventory, your CRM, and different things in there, your accounts receivable, accounts payable process, all that stuff. And there are tools like project management tools, all right? Project management tools. So these tools includes tools like ClickUp, and you've probably seen a lot of videos in my channel about ClickUp. There are also tools like Monday, like Asana, Jira, Trello. There are many different ways and different tools of how you can track these things. But again, the answer here to the visibility problem is to have a project management, a CRM system, a tracking system that will allow you to have that visibility into what's going on. Because unless you have that visibility, you're not going to be feeling so sure about delegating the task to others. And again, including myself, I'm speaking to myself here as well. So in order for us to have the clarity, we need to have the soft systems, which means documented processes and workflows. In order for us to have visibility, we're going to implement the information systems, which include all the business software, which you can think about CRM systems, project management tools, ERP systems. All right, great. So now, as we're answering the first question, and I'm going to switch the color here, right? So now we answered the first question, and now we understand what do we do about no one can do it better than me, and how do we solve this. The answer to the second and the third question actually is very similar to the first one. If you think about this, we're organized around people, not functions. What this means is that the way you're doing work and your frameworks, which means your soft systems, as Michael Gerber mentions, are focused and organized around people. So your processes, your workflows, however you document those systems, they're not organized around functions of what needs to be done or what needs to be delivered, but rather around people. For example, this is what Ilya does every single day. That doesn't really help, because if Ilya goes away and if Ilya is not working with us anymore, again, how do you figure out and how do you find a different person to do Ilya's work? It's better to say Ilya plays this specific parts in this workflows or in this processes, but again, it's not very helpful to just say this is what Ilya did and you just need to do the same. So we're going to say that soft systems, which is the answer over here, basically answers the problem number 2. And the problem number 3 that we have is we don't measure, we don't improve. And again, this basically refers to the visibility problem, is that we don't really see what's going on. We don't understand what's happening. This is why we have that anxiety of delegating the work. And again, whether you're a business owner or a business manager, you have a small team or a bigger team, again, those problems, you can resonate with those problems. So the information system is going to be the solution for our question number 3 and problem number 3, which means either we're going to need to document the process for the problem number 2, or we're going to need to provide some sort of a tracking system. And I'm not saying this has to be like a popular software. It can be anything you can use for this specific purpose. Just like pen and paper is probably not the best option to use in 2026. So that's the only thing. So this is how we answering these 3 questions. So again, hopefully that was helpful. Now I want to dedicate a little bit of time and spend a little bit of time actually showing you what those systems mean. So the first thing, and I want to give you an example, because when you think about all of this, it's very easy to get the concept of like, all right, I understand the concept, this is what we need to do, but what does it really mean? Like, how does it look in real life? And I'm going to show you this right now. So the first thing that we discussed was the soft systems, right? And this is basically describing how the work is done and what is the workflow, how the processes are done in this company. And this is the way I like to document it. I'm using Miro. You can use any other software like a pen and paper and just a whiteboard to outline this. But what I like to do is I like to explain the systems that I build using the process first framework, where I explain the process, explain all the things that were happening. For example, here you can see that this is employee hiring and onboarding process, right? This is one of the examples of the processes that many businesses have. And here I'm explaining step by step of what do we need to do in order to complete this process. You can see that there are different roles here on the left-hand side. You can see different team members, some of them applicants, some of them office teams, some of them virtual assistants. And over here, it explains step by step of how do we do this, like how this work is going to happen. So whenever someone comes in the business, instead of telling them, you just need to do whatever that person did that we had previously, you can just show them every single process that they're going to be part of and explain to them step by step of what are those responsibilities. All right. So that is what I consider a soft system. And again, this is another example of when I'm building this system. And in this example, this is a ClickUp system that I've built. But I outline the process first, and then I explain what are all the functional requirements for this system to understand, what role does the system play in this specific part of the business. But I also explain to every single team member of how do they need to use this system in order to achieve the result or to deliver the deliverable that they're working on. All right. So that's going to be the soft system that we reviewed previously that Michael Gerber explains. And again, I feel like many times the concept makes sense, but when it comes to like actually implementing this, it's not very easy to like, start doing this. So this is the way I do this. You just simply open the Miro board. It can be like a free account, and you just outline the step-by-step using the step blocks or like the sticky notes. You say, this is what we do first, this is what we do second, this is what we do third, and make sure that your team members have access to here so that they can learn this information and understand this information whenever they need to. And the second thing that we discussed was the information systems. So now, information systems can be different. I'm going to show you like an example of ClickUp system that I've built, and I'm going to show you how it looks from inside. But you can use different CRM systems. There are different project management tools apart from ClickUp, like you can find and just Google project management tools in Google. It's going to show you. So this is just one of the example of how this looks, but I want to show you what the real kind of system or what the actual system looks like when you start implementing this. So in this example, we reviewed together with you the hiring process here, right? So this was the soft system that we built, the framework of how the work is done. And now over here in ClickUp, what I do, I transform this in an actual system, information system, to now have the visibility and have a clear understanding of where are we standing with all the things. And here you can see in ClickUp, I'm splitting the job openings and applications. You have a list for all the applications in my ClickUp account, so I can see who applied to different job openings. I can see all the job openings that are right now in different stages of the process. I can move them through awaiting approval, ready to post, posted, canceled, position field. So again, all those stages the job opening go through is visible in here in my ClickUp or any system that you're going to use. But that's basically the point, is whenever you're looking inside your system, information system, it's easy for you to get information, consume information, analyze it, and answer the question, how can we do this better? Or where are we standing and how can we do the process faster, whatever the case might be. All right, so that is basically it. So hopefully everything that we discussed makes sense. If you have any questions, post them in the comments below. And if you'd like to read the book, again, it's called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Feel free to post any questions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Thank you.